The violent protest outside a hotel in Essex housing asylum seekers indicates that emotions are running high over the issue of sexual assaults against British girls. And that is really an unfortunate incident. But some critics believe that far right activists and elements of conservatism are trying to exploit this. But it was not only uh, the activist of any ultra nationalist group, but there were also ordinary citizens who were venting their anger against this unfortunate incident. There are critics who believe that the government has already taken some people into custody over the issue of the violent protests. Besides, the alleged accused has also been arrested. So let the law take its own course. It seems that this anger will not die down easily, and there are certain elements who are trying to seize every opportunity to vent their anger against immigration. And unfortunately, because of the cuts in the social sectors, uh, the problems of ordinary people are increasing, and because of this anger could witness a phenomenal surge in coming weeks or months or maybe years. However, the government has already taken action, and it is believed that justice will be done, and the affected family would be extended all sort of assistance. Saner elements would argue that let the law take its own course. But what is the future of far right forces in the country? Of course, they will exploit every opportunity. But on the other hand, the government also needs to, um, train these people or aware these people, because most of the immigrants are coming different countries, and in those countries, these standards of treating women are different because they are coming from a different background. In some countries, women may not be given equal rights, they may not be considered equal. There are also issues surrounding the age of marriage. So it is important that immigrants understand cultural values of the UK, and it is also important that they attend certain sessions or workshops whereby they can get information about this, because in the UK and almost in all Western countries, women are respected, they are almost given equal rights. And the same could be said about children, where a lot of attention is paid towards the welfare of children. But unfortunately, some people or experts believe that the rise of the far right forces, in fact, lies in the attacks on social sectors. There has been austerity in the UK and other parts of the country, especially during the time of the Conservative Party. It is asserted that more than 14,000 police stations, and libraries, sports clubs, and other places of public interest were shut down. A number of bus stops were also shut down. They accused the far right activists of distorting facts and misrepresenting reality. For instance, conservative elements make a lot of hue and cry over the expenses that the government carries out on asylum or immigrants, which, according to some experts, is hardly 2 billion pound. On the other hand, the government spends a huge amount on defense budget. Uh, there are experts who believe that after the demise of the Soviet Union and dismantling of Warsaw Pact, which was against the Western capitalist world, and Soviet Union was considered an enemy by the British ruling elite. So Soviet Union has gone a long time ago. So there is no potential threat to the country. So that's why there is no justification for spending more than 55 billion pound on defense or modernizing tridents that might be ecologically disastrous, because the UK does not have enough land mass, and dumping depleted uranium would not be easy. So they believe that such a huge amount should be diverted towards building hospitals, improving schools, improving the performance of police and other departments as well. Experts and critics also accuse far right of distorting facts over the issue of housing. When it comes to housing, the far right would say that most of the social housings have been taken by immigrants. But again, some critics believe that the Conservative Party drastically slashed the budgets for affordable housing. Some go to the extent of saying that it slashed the budget by 63%, while there are other on the left who say that basically it is the corporation and real estate tycoons or people who are involved in real estate that are in reality creating problems in housing sectors. And according to one research, 1% elite or corporation and bankers, they own more than 50% land in England. 30% is owned by the traditional gentry or aristocracy. Around 17% is believed to be owned by corporations, and 17% is owned by bankers and newly rich people. Hardly 5% of the ordinary British, have their own home when it comes to ordinary British people. So the rental properties that are owned by private individuals or private profiteers, in reality, they should be blamed for the housing crisis. For instance, one bank owns more than 4,000 rental properties, while there is a company, British company, that owns more than 11,000 rental properties. That has led to the rise in the rent, and of course it has also contributed towards the housing crisis. Some critics also believe that when it comes to crimes, the far right also exaggerates it. And in reality, if we look at a number of serial killer from 19th century, most of them uh, who have killed hundreds of people, they were not from immigrant background. In the same way, some might argue that during the 18th and 19th century, immigrants were almost non-existent in the UK, but in the middle of 17th century, there have been a number of cases where young girls as young as 5 years, they were sexually assaulted. 13 years old girl, 14 years old girl. But that does not mean that those people who are committing crimes against British women today, they should not be they should not be arrested, or they should not be punished. Of course, law should take its own course. But the main point is that criminals should be considered criminal without regard to their ethnicity, and they should be treated as criminal, and they should be dealt with in accordance with law. So these are like, on housing issue, they do not speak. The far right activists or even conservative leaders do not speak. They also do not want to speak about the British companies that have shifted their industries, manufacturing units from the UK to, let's say, to countries like India, maybe Poland, Bangladesh, and other countries in search of cheap labor and for profit. Then most of the conservative and far right activists consider Margaret Thatcher as their icon. and she was the one who, according to some critics, destroyed industrial base of the UK in order to weaken trade unions. And naturally, most of those trade unions were led by white working class. And this and she also opened a British market, which was later on flooded by Chinese goods, weakening manufacturing and industrial sectors. And naturally, an overwhelming majority of the people working in industrial or manufacturing sector was from white working class, who were rendered jobless, and the golden days of 1960s and 70s are no more there. Welfare system has been under threat for a long time. Then a number of governments have been following austerity, which means that they cut down social budgets. They spend less money on hospitals, on schools, on the public infrastructure, and more money perhaps on non-productive sector of the economy like defense. So critics believe that instead of blaming uh, immigrants and asylum seeker for all ills of society, there has to be a serious analysis. Austerity, the policies of British companies that are shifting manufacturing units, and the profit oriented thinking of the real estate, the land holding and land rental properties, the ownership of private properties. These are important questions that have to be thought. And unfortunately, the UK and other countries are going to raise defense budget in the future. And for NATO, this budget is going to be 5% of the GDP, which is in many countries 2% of the GDP. It means that the UK and other Western countries would further slash the budgets that matters for ordinary people. It means that if there are more economic problems, if there are more financial hardships, there will be more anger among the people, and naturally far right would try to capitalize on it. Conservative elements would try to capitalize on it. And in if there is no economic stability, if the governments all over Europe continue slashing budgets for public infrastructure, for amenities that matter for ordinary people, then far right forces will definitely get strengthened in coming months and weeks.